Today we're going to talk about expressions that have exponents in them. So the first thing we need to do is we need to discuss what is an exponent. So an exponent, if you'll see, we've got an example b to the n. That's your general form. What we have here is b is called the base and n is called the exponent. And what the exponent does is tell you how many times to multiply the base times itself over and over again. So if you have something like x cubed, that means that I'm going to be taking x times x times x, because there's three x's, there's the 3 as the exponent. If we come down here to 2 cubed, that would be 2 times 2 times 2, and then we could work that out since it says to simplify it all the way. 2 times 2 is 4, times another 2 would be 8. The same thing holds true if you're going to do a fraction. It just means that if the fraction is in parentheses and we have an exponent on the outside, everything in the parentheses is going to get that exponent. So this would be 4/5 times another 4/5. Since we have 4/5 squared, that means you take it times itself 2 times. So then we can multiply that straight across and get 16 over 25. And that would be our simplified answer. You could do decimals the same way. This would be 0.3 times 0.3 times 0.3 times 0.3. So I'm multiplying 0.3 times itself 4 times, and so that would be equal to 0.0081, and a lot of those you can do on the calculator just to make it a little bit easier for you. Alright, so in the expression b to the n, the b again is called the base and the n is called the exponent. Alright, so if we simplify 0.8 squared, that'd be 0.8 times 0.8, which would give me 0.64. If we're going to do 1/2 to the 5th power, that would be 1/2. If I want to write it out like this, I could do this. 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. Is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is. 1 across the top just gives me a 1. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 16. Times the last 2 would be 32. You could also do 1 to the 5th. We're going to learn some exponent rules in just a second. Over 2 to the 5th. And you could work those out, and that would be equal to the same thing, the 1 over 32. Alright, square roots. You're going to do just a little bit with square roots, not a whole lot. We save square roots for Math 100, but if you find the square root of 25, that means you find the number that multiplies times itself to get 25. So the answer there would be 5, because 5 times 5 equals 25. Notice whenever you take the square root, we don't have the square root symbol anymore around that 5. It's just a single 5. Okay, so if we want to do the same thing with 9, square root of 9, well, what number times itself equals 9? That would be 3. So, because 3 times 3 equals 9. If you have a fraction, you do the numerator and you do the denominator. So I've got a 49 on top. The number times itself that equals 49 is 7. On the bottom, the number that multiplies times itself to get 16 would be 4. So 7 over 4. So simplifying square roots, you just have to think about what number times itself equals the number under the square root. Square root of 36 would be a 6. And then square root of 81 over 100, the top, square root of 81, 9 times 9 is 81. And on the bottom, 10 times 10 is 100. So that would be 9/10. Alright, so let's do some simplifying. Remember, we have order of operations, and in case you don't remember, our order of operations is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or PEMDAS. So I'm going to write it over here. P stands for parentheses. E stands for exponents. M and D are multiplication and division. And the reason I wrote them next to each other is because we do them from left to right. So if I come to a division before a multiplication, that's all I have left, I can do the division before the multiplication. Same thing works with the A and the S, that's adding and subtracting. If you come to a subtraction before an addition, you can go ahead and do that. So if you come over here and you look at this 10 minus 2 times 3, remember that if we have parentheses, that means multiplication. So I, according to my order of operations, I don't have, really the parentheses is acting as a multiplication. So I don't have exponents, I have multiplication before I can do this subtraction. So I'm going to have 10 minus 2 times 3 would be 6. Then 10 minus 6 is 4. A lot of times I will write these straight down. I'm not going to have a lot of room on this next one, so I might do it some out to the side. But you just have to remember that you need to stay with your, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, your order of operations. Alright, grouping symbols. All of these are grouping symbols. We could have parentheses, we could have brackets, we could have these little braces. And when you do grouping symbols, you're going to work from the inside out. Okay, so we're going to start with the very most innermost, and I just rewrite everything. So 4 plus, sometimes my pen is a little slow, 5 plus 3, bracket, 15 minus 2. The innermost parentheses is this 8 minus 1, so that's a 7. Bracket, minus 2, brace. So you see, I really don't do much of anything except one at a time. Now I'm going to do what's inside this inside bracket right here. So I'm going to leave 4 plus the little brace, 5 plus the 3 on the outside, and then let's work the inside. We've got 2 times 7, that would be 14. So 15 minus 14. That's all I did. And if you take these just a little chunk at a time, you'll get them right. You can't stick this whole thing into a calculator because, one, you've got to know how to put all the parentheses and everything in your calculator, and two, it's just something you need to know how to do. So 4 plus 5 plus 15 minus 14 would be 1. 3 times 1 is 3 minus 2 brace. Now I can do what's in these braces. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 minus 2 would be 6. So that's going to be 4 plus 6, which gives me 10 for an ending answer. And you see, if we took it a chunk at a time, then that made it much easier to work. You're not going to have really, really long ones like that all the time. A lot of them you're going to have just like the ones at the bottom of this page. You've got 15 minus 3, and it's in absolute value. We've talked about absolute value, so 15 minus 3 would give me 12 in absolute value, and the absolute value of 12 is 12. 11 minus 2 in this next one would give me 9, so square root of 9, and we did that above. 3 times 3 is 9, so the square root of 9 would be 3. If you have a fraction, let's do the top. 24 minus 6 is 22. On the bottom, 4 plus 2 is 6. And then you see if you can reduce that at all. Well, 22 and 6 are both even, so I know they'll reduce by 2's. So I'm going to divide by 2 on the top and on the bottom. So that's going to give me 11 over 3. And that can't reduce anymore, so I'll leave it 11 over 3. And let's move on, and let's have some that are a little bit more. You're going to have some parentheses thrown in, maybe some exponents. Again, remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or PEMDAS. You might have learned it that way. So on this one, I've got, again, I'm going to do these parentheses first because I have parentheses. I leave everything else alone. 5 minus 2 is 3, and then I've got an exponent with that 3. So I've got 2 times 10 minus 3 times 3 is 9. So now I have 9. Notice I didn't change the sign in front. I just worked 3 times 3. Now I have multiplication, which gives me 20 minus 9. 20 minus 9 is going to give me 11 for a final answer. On this next one, you've got to really think about, what you're coming to first. I come to a division symbol before this multiplication, so I can go ahead and do that division. 24 divided by 2 is 12 times 3 minus 4 plus 10. I do a lot of rewriting when I do these. 12 times 3 is 36 minus 4 plus 10. Now I just have adding and subtracting, so I can just do it in a line. 36 minus 4 gives me 32. 32 plus 10 gives me 42. And there you go. Alright, let's work a couple of these. This one that has the parentheses and the braces in it, let's do it from inside out. So 8 plus bracket 30 minus 4. Let's work the 7 minus 2 is 5. So that's the only thing I did. I just rewrote everything else. Now I'm going to work inside the bracket. Can't get to the exponent yet until you do the inside of the bracket. So that's going to be 30 minus 4 times 5 is 20. Again, I'm just rewriting everything. Now I can do 30 minus 20. That gives me 10. Now I can get to that exponent because I've worked everything that was in the bracket. Well, 10 squared is 10 times 10, so that would be 100. 8 plus 100 gives me 108. Those will probably take you the longest, the ones that have the brackets and the parentheses with them. Alright, on this next one, we've got 7 squared, that would be 49, minus 5 squared would be 25. We can go ahead and do the top. Then on the bottom, we've got 8 minus 6, that's a 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2, plus 4. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I think we're far enough along that I can do that without having to write that absolute value for you. So on the top, 49 minus 25, that would give me 24. On the bottom, 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 goes into 24 4 times. So my answer is 4. Alright, this last one on this section, the square root. So I've got square root of 8 squared is 64, 8 times 8, plus 6 squared, 6 times 6 is 36. That's all under the square root, minus 5 times 2. So I'm going to do this. The square root actually is acting kind of like a parentheses or a parentheses in our PEMDAS list. So the square root, 64 plus 36 is 100, minus, I can go ahead and do 5 times 2 is 10. So now I've got square root of 100. 10 times 10 is 100, so the square root of 100 is 10, minus 10, and look what we end up with. 10 minus 10 is 0 on this one. Okay, you can see down at the bottom of this page, you've got an example here, and it saves the last step for you to do 2 over 4 to reduce that. I'm going to leave that for you to be able to do, to reduce that 2 over 4. Let's do the one that's on the right. We're going to take the numerator and work it. We're going to take the denominator and work it, and then see if we can simplify. In the numerator, I've got to do division. I'll do division before I do multiplication. So 27 divided by 9 is 3 times 2 on top. On the bottom, I need to do this exponent, so 8, leave it alone, minus 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4, plus 1. So now on the top, I have 3 times 2, which would be 6. 8 minus 4 is 4. 4 plus 1 would be 5. And I can't really reduce that. You can leave your improper fractions and that would be just fine. Okay, let's look on to the last page. We've talked about phrases and what they mean. There was a chart in a previous section over what they mean. So right now it's asking us to write the given phrase and then see if we can do anything with it. So the product of 9 and x, product means to multiply. So you could write this a number of ways. I'm going to write it as 9x. If you write two terms right next to each other, that implies multiplication. You could have used parentheses. You could have said 9 times x like this. You could have done 9 times x with a little dot, but that's your last resort. Because we're starting to use algebra more and more. We need to write them right next to each other like the 9x. The difference of 6 and w, difference means subtract, and it's not the phrase where I have to switch the order. If you'll remember what that is. You don't have to worry about that here. It's just 6 minus w. 8 less than the square root of z. So 8 less than, that's the one where you have to switch the order. So the square root of z is going to come first, so we're going to write square root of z. I usually do a little line through my z, and we're taking 8 away, so minus 8. The quotient of the absolute value of t, quotient means to divide, so I'm going to take the absolute value of t on top, so that's going to go in my numerator, divided by the negative 15. All right. The bottom of the page, we're writing these phrases, and then we're actually going to be able to do something with them. So the quotient of C and the absolute value of B would look something like this. This quotient means to divide. The first part will go in the numerator, the second part will go in the denominator. So then it gives me numbers for these. So C is 12, and B is a negative 6. So I'm going to put that in the absolute value. So that's really 12 divided by, the absolute value of negative 6 is 6. So 12 divided by 6 would be 2. Now, twice the sum of A and C. Remember, twice means to multiply times 2. So twice the sum of A and C. Since I have words that are right next to each other without a number in between, that means I've got to use some sort of connection. So in this case, I'm going to use parentheses. So to do the sum of A and C, I'm going to say A plus C, because remember, sum means to add. It says to take twice that. So in order to take twice that, I just have to put a 2 right in the front. And that'll take care of twice the sum of A plus C. All right, the difference of twice C and the square root of A. Well, the difference means I'm going to subtract. I'm going to subtract twice C minus the square root of A. So twice C means to take it 2 times, so 2C minus the square root of A would be square root of A. Oh, and I forgot, they gave us numbers at the top. Y'all were going to let me forget that. I'll go ahead and do this one, and then I'll go back and do the one in the middle. So 2 times 12 minus square root of 9. Well, 2 times 12 is 24 minus the square root of 9. 3 times 3 is 9, so the square root of 9 is 3. 24 minus 3 would be 21. On this one, the one in the middle, 2 times A is 9 plus C is 12. Okay, so 2 times 9 plus 12 would give me 21. And then 2 times 21 would give me 42. All right. And then the last one we have, you see that they have one at the bottom of the page. These are just like we did at the top, so we'll try another one. 3 times the difference of 6 and y. So 3 times the difference. So again, I'm going to have to use some parentheses because it's 3 times the difference. So difference means to subtract. So I'm going to take 6 minus y. And I've got to take 3 times that. So this time I'm going to put a 3 in the front of that. And they tell me that x equals 8, y equals 3, z equals 6. I only need the y on this one because it just had a y with it. So 3 times 6 minus y is 3. So do the parentheses first. 3 times 3 gives me a 9. And that's how we work with exponents and then doing some order of operations.